Welcome to the Office Latte Podcast, where we go beyond the boardroom to explore new conversations on life and career. I'm Erin Kennedy, CEO of Professional Resume Services and wife, mother, sister, daughter, aunt, and friend. Now, let's dive in. Good morning, Summer. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Erin?
Good. I noticed you have a lobster on your shirt. Lean back. Let me see. I mean, that is super cute.
For all the listeners, it's a white sweater with a red lobster. Yeah, I'm going coastal today. Thanks for noticing.
Well, you do live on the coast. She has an ocean view. Come on.
I don't know.
That's just not even. Yes, you do. You can see it from your room.
No, I do.
You do.
I do.
I know. You're so lucky. Anyways,
Thanks.
When I was in Maine for my 25th wedding anniversary, with my husband, but
I hope.
No, not myself. No.
With me.
Yeah, with you. But we traveled all through these small towns, and everywhere we looked, it was lobsters, which I know that's like their thing. Yeah.
I haven't gone. Avery went, my fiance, but he went to Maine, and I was like, I gotta go. We gotta do a trip like your guys's, because that was it was like quintessential Maine.
That's what I want to do. It was. We
Like
drove into every little small town.
Yeah.
Had lobster rolls ever. Oh my gosh, we went to that was so much fun. But I look at that sweater and I'm like, yeah, you might just send me that.
Yeah, no, it's good. I got it from Marshall's, everyone. Yeah,
actually, I do have a bag. I have a tote bag with a lobster on it.
Oh,
it's a walking lobster, so it's not the same as yours, but it was cute.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I was going to say, speaking of lobster, but this does not segue.
I was going to bring up, I don't know why this made me think of it, but I've been binge watching Real Housewives of New York City, the early seasons. If you know, you know.
Never
and not that they're in Maine, they're obviously in New York City, but they'll like travel out to the Hamptons a lot, or to the Berkshires is a big place.
Okay.
And
yeah, I'm there every weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, you need to watch. Anyone who's listening, watch season 8. It's so good. I could go on about that for hours, but this is not a recap podcast. But I could if I really. I have the energy.
We need to get it together because I want to talk about our first guest. Yes. But first, let's just talk about her. Let's just talk about her because I love her and I'm so excited to talk to her. Her name is Hannah Morgan, the career Sherpa. So Hannah, funny story, which I'm sure Hannah and I will get into, but she and I met via Twitter. We were kind of in like some Twitter groups, and then we were in this thing called, I'll just let it, but we can talk about it there. But we were in a couple groups together. It's a secret until the episode. You guys
were in a secret Twitter society 10 years ago.
It was a secret society, yeah. So of career experts. But anyways, Hannah, and so I met Hannah, but we had never talked until this week. I had reached out last week and I'm like, do you want to talk on my show? She was like, yeah. So then we talked this week and just kind of touch base. And I swear it was going to be one of those quick 15-minute calls. And I think at like 45 minutes, we were like, okay, we got to go. You know,
you're like, yeah, we could actually fill the podcast.
I know. I think it was an hour actually. I think it was an hour, but, so anyways, it was great to talk to her, but she is a job search strategist and her experience is guiding, cue the Sherpa, but guiding new job seekers through the process. CareerSherpa.net provides articles and resources for job seekers. She was recognized as a top LinkedIn voice in job search and careers. She publishes, I do love her weekly newsletter, it comes every Sunday. So it's called Career Essentials. Since 2015, she recently kind of revamped the layout of it and everything. I just love it. It's really good information and resources. And so her passion for, bringing job seekers together to share their struggles and successes is what had her launch this group, this job search challenge. But we'll talk more about that too. And she also has Monday Motivation, an accountability group. She's just, I love talking, or I love her posts because they're usually pretty hopeful. They're geared towards job seekers. I mean, and the worst part of job seeking, I think, is job search,
Yeah.
And she really does help you kind of guide through that sometimes very turbulent time. I mean, being out of a job is, especially if you weren't expecting it, is pretty awful. So luckily we have our career Sherpa, Hannah Morgan, to help us get through that. So yeah.
She also, I feel like, brings the energy, though, that you need. Like, when you are not feeling the best, which when you think about, like, what Sherpas do, they kind of are like, come on, get up the hill. Like, they bring that positive energy, and she's so, like, full of life. So she's kind of the perfect person when you're, like, you're in the dumps kind of because of what happened. She's like, all right, girl, don't give up. Like, keep it moving.
Yeah. And just really good tips and guidance.
Yeah,
so
seriously.
So I don't know. I'm ready to dive in and talk to her. And I
Yeah.
have a whole list of questions, so hopefully she won't mind me. But yeah, this will be good. All right. Without further ado, let's just dive in. Welcome, Hannah Morgan. I am so excited to have you here.
Great to be here. Exciting.
I know. It's funny because you and I chatted briefly the other day, and we were both like, we've never talked. I mean, so I met Hannah back, in we call them the Twitter days. I mean, that's what I call them, because really that was for me like the first social media I ever did. Where you're like meeting people and, so I loved that. And that's where we all kind of met there. I was thinking about, do you remember, this is what I was going to bring up. Do you remember the Career Collective?
I was just thinking about that. Yes.
Yeah. So what that was, everybody, I don't know who started that, but it was like,
it was Jackie, I think, maybe.
Huh?
Maybe it was Jackie.
Jackie? Okay, yeah. But there were probably, 10 or 15 of us? I was going to look it up on my blog because, we would post, monthly?
Monthly, with a theme.
Yeah. It was a theme. That was so fun. And that was, the late, great Ed Hahn. Loved him.
Yeah.
And Susan Joyce, you, me, Jackie. Was Rosa in it? Rosa Vargas?
Rosa Vargas was in it.
Vargas.
Miriam Salpeter.
Miriam, yeah. I'm going to have to look on my blog because I was thinking about that this morning as I was getting ready.
May have been part of that.
Who?
Jessica Hernandez may have been part of
it
later.
That's
honestly how I met so many of you fabulous resume writers, was through that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I'm looking it up right now because it just popped in my head this morning and I thought, oh yeah, I just want to see. It's going to drive me crazy. So here we go. Oh yeah, it was formed by Miriam and Jackie. That's funny. Okay, so who else was in this? Some people, I think JT O'Donnell was in it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Barb Safani, Dawn Bugney.
Oh yeah.
That one guy who always hit his face. Greg or George, I forgot his name. Gail Howard.
Oh, from overseas.
Yeah. And Deborah
Wheatman,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm looking at it now and that was such a fun time. Anyways, that was really, really fun. So yeah, we had a theme and then we all had to write about that theme.
And then we had
not write the same thing, huh?
And then we had to comment on each other's posts.
Yeah.
It was like a LinkedIn pod before LinkedIn pods were a thing.
Right. And we had to comment on each other's blog posts.
Right.
So you had to go to their blog. It wasn't like one place like LinkedIn. Yeah. That was fun. Anyways, so Hannah and I have known each other for a long time.
And we've never spoken until just like this week.
Right, this week, which seems crazy and unreal. So I was super thrilled that you said yes without hesitating. So thank you.
Yeah.
Because I knew it would be a fun conversation because what you do, I love, job search experts and people who specialize in that because that is really what job seekers want is to find a job. So having a coach, having, a thinking partner through this is so important,
Yeah. And I've always been sort of, I'm anti-resume because this is what we have experienced as we have done business over the past, so many years. The first and only thing somebody thinks they need is a good resume.
Right.
Right. So they're always looking for you. Right. The expert resume writers. And I always say, I am not a resume writer. I don't write resumes. I don't critique resumes. I don't want to. There are lots of experts who specialize in that. I want to help you with the strategy, the implementation, the stuff that is actually kind of more important than having a good
It should be the first step. I mean, of course, updating resume and LinkedIn are important because you're going to need them, but you also need the strategy. Yeah. So so tell me about your background and how did you become the career Sherpa?
Yeah. Right. I had been working in human resources, and I had reached a place where I was burnt out and ready for a change. So a friend had recently joined a very large company called Lee Hecht Harrison.
Yeah, right.
And she said, we're looking for people in Rochester. Why don't you come interview? But first you have to research the company. And I think we were talking about this. Like that was the back of dial-up. And my internet wasn't really good. So I never did the research. I went like, this is exactly what you're not supposed to do when you're interviewing for a job. So I ended up getting the job. I guess they must have been hard up for people. But I liked my HR background. Yeah. And I fell in love. That's when I fell in love with this job. Who knew? Like, I didn't know that you could make a job out of helping people look for work. Like, that was never on my radar. But and I never would have found that had this friend not called me and said, we're looking for people. Right. So I did Lee Hecht Harrison for a number of years until the work, fortunately ran dry. And then I went to work for a One Stop, which is run by the Department of Labor in conjunction with a nonprofit.
Yeah, I did as well. Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing.
Michigan Works. I did Rochester Works. Yeah. Yeah. And then I decided to go out on my own. Because there were so many people that I wanted to help. And so much of the work that I was doing was just limited to the Rochester area. And I wanted to be more than just Rochester. I wanted to help more people. So,
yeah. How did you come up with the cute name, Career Sherpa?
No, I was brainstorming with one of my colleagues who I've known forever. And so we came up with a bunch of ideas, and he had stumbled upon at the time, the marketing Sherpa was a really big guy. Like, he did all kinds of great stuff. I'm like, ooh, I could be the career Sherpa. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So
but then a lot of people don't know what a Sherpa is. So if you're one of those people that doesn't quite yet know what a Sherpa is, a Sherpa is one of it's actually, I've had people tell me you can't call yourself a Sherpa because it's not respectful to people who are Sherpas. It's almost like a religion culture.
Okay.
But I said, well, I'm sort of honoring them. But a Sherpa, you find them in Tibet, climbing Mount Everest. They are the guides that carry the packs and guide you up that mountain because they know the best way.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the name because to me, I totally get a visual, of you guiding people because that's what it is. So let's talk a little bit about, career journeys and philosophy. So, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen in the job search landscape since, they've been huge, but what things have stood out for you as far as biggest shifts that you've seen?
The labor market is like a pendulum, right? When we were doing this 2000, well, it really got 8, 9, 10, like that Great Recession. There were no jobs available. And so people were going years without employment. And then things got better or somewhat better. And then we hit the pandemic.
Right.
And then there were no jobs.
Right.
It's got really good again.
Yeah.
And now things aren't so good. So the pendulum swings. Yeah. And when people start talking right now, this is the worst labor market ever. I'm like, oh my gosh, where were you in 2008, 9, 10?
Right.
Like that was the worst job market ever.
It was,
everything is relative.
Yeah.
But when I think about what we've seen, and I use we because we've seen this together, right? There have been some awesome advancements. And I always am that cheerleader advocate for the job seeker. Companies they take advantage of human beings all the time.
Agreed.
They fire people for no reason.
Right.
Whatever. So there have been shifts where employees are starting to get some power back, and I want us to celebrate those, and I want job seekers to know they can leverage them. One of those things happened during the pandemic where we had the ability to work remotely on a greater scale.
And companies kept on working and running, and
and they were very profitable. Oh,
yes, they were.
Right.
I hate the fact that they're bringing them all back in.
It makes no sense to me.
No sense.
And people have been identifying like the 7 reasons why. And I read a really good article that said, you can absolutely bring people back to the office if you clearly state what your reason is. And if you need to have a better company culture because people are all over the place and there isn't that unified culture, then yes, do that. Bring them back. But if you don't have an outcome that you're expecting to gain by bringing people back into the office other than watching their butt in a seat, or to pay, validate you're paying for rent on that space that you don't own. Like, there are all kinds of bad reasons, but there are some legitimate reasons. But there's still, and the trend towards remote work or hybrid work was already growing.
Yes.
Right. Prior to the pandemic. So while it was a major shift, it became mainstream. So that is one of the greatest things that came out of the pandemic, that companies actually began to realize they could have remote workers and be productive still. The other great thing that came out of after the pandemic was this transparency in salaries. Woo,
yes.
Woo.
Finally.
Oh my God.
I know.
I remember in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, like in those teen years and later, I got into arguments with people. I said, you have to put, the argument was, people said, we don't want to put the salary we're offering because we're a really competitive field and we don't want our competitors to know how much we're offering. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
People need to know what the range is for the job, because that helps them indicate whether or not they're going to want to do that job.
Exactly. And you don't want to, why waste your time? Why waste somebody else's time? Just put it out there.
Yeah.
I know. I don't understand it.
So there are states that are making that a law. There are cities that have made that a law, that companies have to be transparent on their salaries. So another great thing. I think the other thing that we saw, and this wasn't pandemic, is the ability to be a gig worker.
Love that.
Really super easy.
Yeah.
Right. So you could do Instacart, you could be an Uber driver, you could create an Etsy store.
Yeah. You can TikTok seller or TikTok shop person. Yeah.
So all of that is huge. And I think many people don't realize that that's an option. And one of the things that I want to make sure that we sort of address in career insurance policy is having multiple income streams.
Right.
We would never put all of our financial investments in one stock, ever.
No.
That's silly. Yet we put all of our income earning requirements in one employer. And what happens when that one employer goes away?
I know. And that's exactly what, I know. And I do love, I agree. I mean, you've seen these small businesses and just thriving the past few years, and it's up to people to advocate for themselves and have these multiple streams of income so that they're not just dependent on one company. Because you see that
they can turn it off or up or down depending on how their workload is, but they always have that ability to make money.
Yes, I know. I love that.
That should be empowering for the individual.
I know. I've seen so many cool businesses pop up, and I thought, oh my gosh, I never thought that could be a thing, but it is. And they're doing great, so I do love that part. So 2025, what are the top job search trends that professionals should be paying attention to?
I think we got lulled into complacency and relying on job postings when the market was really good.
Yeah.
Right. Every company was posting their opportunities, and people were eager to get out of Dodge, and they'd apply and they'd get an interview and they'd get a job. And that's just not what we're seeing right now.
Right.
There are fewer jobs being posted. because people aren't moving around.
Right.
And companies aren't necessarily growing right now. They're sort of in a holding pattern until they wait and see, what does July, August, September look like? Right? We don't know.
Right.
And there are a lot of people still unemployed that are looking because there was all of that government downsizing and other downsizing. So the pool of applicants is larger, the pool of available jobs is smaller. And so people just are, if they're just relying on those posted jobs, they're not seeing.
Right.
And they're not getting noticed because they're one of 200, 300, 400, 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And we know that people hire people, right?
Yes.
So that's where the biggest shift has to come.
Yes. I was going to say, so in this, with this, what do you recommend to people? I mean, I know what I recommend, but what do you recommend?
I know. It was so funny. I had a guy I was talking to the other day and I said, well, how many jobs are you applying to a week? He's like, a week or a day? I'm like, okay, whatever. He's like 200 a day.
A day?
A day.
That's not, okay.
And he's been doing that for months.
Yeah, I'm sure he was pretty bummed out by the lack of response.
Right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I need you to stop doing that because clearly it's not working. Like, why are you doing that? It's not working. There are many reasons I can tell you why it's not working, but it's not working, so I don't need to give you any other reason, right?
Well, you know what? Give us 2 reasons why it's not working.
He was not adjusting or modifying his resume for the different jobs. No,
it was just one resume to 200.
Yes.
Okay.
He wasn't doing any research on the company. I don't think he was even sending a cover letter. He was just bloom.
Okay. So, yeah. You probably don't even need to give me a second reason.
But to his defense, like, he really shouldn't have to do anything more than that. Honestly, we've all got a resume. You would think that the recruiter could look at that resume, see that they're somewhat aligned, and there's enough interest there. Let me call the person. But the reality is, those recruiters are overwhelmed, and they don't have time to make that connection.
I know. I mean, that's why they've always used ATS, but that's why they need that now. And don't even get me started about the fake applicants and the fake job postings and all of that is taking up so much time.
Right.
On both ends, job seekers and, companies as well, fake applicants.
Yeah. And one of the things that you and I think both do, I spend a lot of time like in recruiter conversations, like monitoring what they're seeing and saying, and I feel their pain. Like
totally.
They've had interviews with people who aren't really the candidate, right? And they are overwhelmed and they're understaffed and they're trying to do the right thing.
I know. Mm-hmm.
So it's tough.
I get it. I do. And it is tough. Yeah.
So what, realizing that that's the reality that we're in right now, we have to do more. Job seekers have to do more to get themselves in front of people.
Yes.
And hopefully before the openings become available.
Right.
So let's just, we can go in reactive mode. To be reactive, you see a job posting and before you apply, you go to LinkedIn and you find all of the people that you know that work in that company, the people that you know, not people you don't know.
So what if they say, but I don't know anybody?
Okay, well then that's always the challenge. Look at alumni. Do you know any alumni that work there? So alumni are better to reach out to than somebody you don't know.
That's true.
So, because you've shared that common bond.
Yes.
So look at alumni. And if you still don't have any alumni and you don't know anybody inside that company, sadly, the only thing that you can potentially do is send an email to that person you don't know and hope that they're empathetic to the situation. But that's a cold outreach. It's a leap of faith and it's not really productive. So this is why we want to get started with this earlier. So that's the reactive mode.
Before you really need it. Yeah.
Right. So the better approach is to be proactive and to identify 40, 50, 60, 75, whatever that number is, right?
Yeah.
Companies that you think you want to work for. These aren't companies that are hiring right now. They could be hiring, but you just don't know about it.
Right.
If you create that list of companies, that's going to drive all of your networking. And it is a longer term approach, but it doesn't mean that it's any slower than applying for jobs. So let's say I want to work at Apple. They're on my list. I'm going to choose other companies besides Apple because everybody wants to work for Apple. So I'm going to choose little companies. I'm going to choose big companies. I'm going to choose whatever. So if I want to work at Apple, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and see who I know at LinkedIn. I probably know a couple people. I'm going to look at the alumni, see if I have any alumni there, and I'm going to make a list of those people. And I'm going to reach out to them systematically over the next few days. Say, hey, I'd love to talk with you about your experience working at Apple. It's a company that's on my radar, and I'd really love to learn more about what you like about working there and what you know about the company, right? That's it. So I'm building that relationship. But even if Apple's on my target company list, I don't know anybody, I'm going to go follow people who work at LinkedIn or that work at Apple on LinkedIn. That hold a job similar to the one that I'm looking for. And I'm going to start commenting on any posts that they make so that I can then reach out to them and they will recognize my name. And, after I've commented.
Now you're on their radar. Okay. So as we're talking about LinkedIn, this keeps popping in my head. What about cold outreach on LinkedIn? I know. So, because you know how you were saying, email them. Worst case scenario, email them. What about reaching out on LinkedIn?
This is this is what I have found. 98% of people who reach out cold to people on LinkedIn don't get a response. It's too easy. There is no barrier. And oh, by the way, if I'm a worker, if I'm employed and working, am I checking my LinkedIn messages? No, because I'm not even really logging into LinkedIn more than once a year, once every 3 months.
Right.
So there's so many reasons why sending that email that you've just paid for because you're a premium member. Is really, it can work. I don't want to discourage people, but we know that everybody checks their email every single day, multiple times a day.
Great advice. That's so true. People check their email. And even if it ends up in spam for some reason, they still check their spam.
Yes.
So, I do. I check my spam every day. I always find emails there. So it's part of my regular thing. So I want to just circle back a little tiny bit. How do you help job seekers? And maybe this is kind of stand out in a sea of AI filtered resumes and ghost postings, so we kind of talked about that, but really there are so many these job postings. Have you come across any of job seekers that you work with that are applying to these dummy jobs that are, they're fake?
I have not heard that. I'm sure they have applied to fake jobs and they just don't even know.
They just don't know. Okay. Yeah.
But that's a huge issue.
It is.
And it used to happen when I worked for a business school here in Rochester. And a lot of the students were from China that were looking for employment in the United States, but they needed sponsorship. But they were always being targeted, and they regularly would find jobs, who knows how they found them, that were fake jobs. And the company whoever did this did such a good job spoofing this job seeker that even the website that would have other company information and product information was a copy and fake of the real thing. So if they tried to do research on the company, they'd go to the company website and it looked legit, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's just awful. I don't even get the point of that. I don't know why people do that. It just drives me nuts.
It's making money because this is what happens, right? That these companies would say, well, I've got a job, pay me, $150. And if I've looked at the company and it looks legit and it looks like they're great jobs there, I'm going to pay somebody $150. And
some is more. I was actually on Good Morning America. I watched a whole special, which we've also heard of. I know I have. And some of these companies were like, we're excited to hire you. It's these startup fees. It's like, in order to I don't know what it was. I think she was selling something, but she had to pay $7,000 to the company
for supplies and stuff or whatever.
Yes. And these people were just doing it. And And then, of course, finding out later. And I get it. It looks legit. So, and you're desperate for a job. I get it.
It's not like it just happens in one email or one phone call. You've
built
this like quote unquote relationship over several emails and several phone calls. So it feels legit. I get it.
I know. It's awful. Ugh.
But we have to be so on alert. And I started getting those awful text messages. Hey, are you looking for a job? We've got this great job at XYZ company. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not looking for a job. So I knew it was a scam.
Yes. I know. But those who are looking at this going, oh, okay, maybe it's from a job board I applied to,
right.
Yeah, I've gotten those too. And so has my husband, who's been retired for Lord knows how many years. And he's like, look what I just got. I keep getting these job postings or these job offers or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's just, the scams out there. It just bothers me. And it's so painful to job seekers,
And so there, Mark Anthony Dyson has his show and a podcast and a newsletter about job scams. And he's always keeping track of the latest and greatest things that we need to be on the watch out for. But
so follow him. Follow him because he does. He's got a great. He's got a great. I mean, he's just on top of it. I love that.
Yeah, I just saw he's referred to himself as an investigative whatever resource or researcher on scams.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and we need somebody out there to do that for us. So okay. So a couple more things. I have a bunch of different questions. I'm just scrolling down here. Okay. Well, we talked about LinkedIn a little bit. All right. I just have one question about LinkedIn. What are the biggest mistakes people make on LinkedIn that you think job seekers make on LinkedIn?
Well, can we talk about LinkedIn's new job search AI thing too? This rolling out?
Yeah, actually, that was my next question.
Okay, but we want to talk about the biggest mistakes.
But no, we can do that. We'll do the. I want to. Huh?
I'll talk about the mistakes because you've seen the mistakes too. I think people don't realize how a LinkedIn profile is a 24/7 place for people to learn about you.
Yeah.
And so I frequently will do LinkedIn checkups with people. Like I'll review their LinkedIn profile with them live on screen and make suggestions. And so the headline, I still don't understand the headline that says, project manager.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I don't know what
got 220 characters there. Use them.
Yes, exactly.
Or what drives me crazy is when it'll say like project manager at General Motors. Or it's just about the company. It does nothing for them. And but I get it. People don't know. But
shame on LinkedIn because LinkedIn defaults to say, do you want us to use your current title?
Yes. And I don't want you right. But a lot of people are nervous and they're like, well, okay, I probably should because if my boss is looking, he's going to wonder why it isn't there. So I know. All right. So let's talk about AI.
So LinkedIn made it official. Right. Okay. I think they just announced it today because I got my email from them today that it's official. Sadly, it's only rolled out to premium members.
All right.
But, if you haven't taken advantage of your 30-day free trial, this would be the time to do it if you're job seeking because the new LinkedIn AI tool is revolutionizing how you look for jobs. One of the things that we have to frequently teach job seekers is how to find the right jobs, right? Mm-hmm. You have to target the right jobs, but in order to target the right jobs, you have to call it the right thing. So job titles are not universal. Every company uses a different job title.
Right.
And because of that, if a company has posted a job and they call it project lead, but you call it project manager, it's not going to call it.
Right. Yes.
And so that's where LinkedIn's AI job search comes into play. You say, using my project management skills, I want to work for a small to medium company in the Metro Detroit area.
Yeah.
And using that, it will search the job boards. It will search the LinkedIn job board for that. So you've specified the skill, the kind of the size of company and the region, in human terms without having to worry about, oh, what filter do I choose?
And you're using the term project management skills versus project manager, which is going to narrow that scope to this. Yeah. Okay. Love that.
And when we were on this pilot call of people that were sort of testing it out real time while LinkedIn was explaining it to us, and one of the people said, oh my gosh, it found this job based on a more general search with a really tiny company, and only 50 people had applied versus like the big mega company that had 3,000 job postings, 3,000 applications, right? So it's going to hopefully make it a more level playing field, no matter the size of the company. And bring to the surface those lesser known opportunities that may not have gotten found otherwise. So hopefully it's a good thing that way. So job seekers will more easily be able to uncover jobs. That's part one. Part two is, again, if you've got the premium, it's going to tell you how well you meet the requirements of this job.
Yeah. Just one thing. So you think premium is, for job seekers, they should definitely get premium, sounds like. I always say try it for the trial period, see what you think, and then make your decision. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's always been my advice. Yeah. But know what you want to use it for. Like, so many people are like, oh, I want to know who's looked at my profile, right? I'm like, is it worth paying $39 to see that?
Right,
if you're going to actually message the people that looked at your profile, then yes, it's worth it. But just to have that information because you're curious is not worth paying money for.
Right.
I'll tell you, one of the biggest advantages to not only for as a job seeker, and I think I wrote a whole post on like the advantages of being a premium user, paying for premium as a job seeker. But one is that you are a top applicant. So you show up in the LinkedIn recruiting software.
Right. Yeah. They're top applicants. Yeah. That's their,
So that's sort of a cool thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is you have access to all of the LinkedIn learning, right? Which that alone is $100.
Yes, it is. It really is. I mean, that library is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you want extra training or extra, information on or expertise in, go to LinkedIn Learning. It really is amazing. I agree. Yeah.
But the other thing, so speeding up and making it easier for you to really see how well you align with the job.
Yeah.
That's what LinkedIn AI is also a feature of in this job search. It will tell you, these are the skills you have. These are the ones you don't have. And, using its AI terminology, it will walk you through. These are the things that you need to highlight to show that you're a fit. Which, we can do that manually, or we can do that in a different tool.
Yeah.
But if it's all there, why
so easy, so much easier.
Because it's pulling from your profile.
Right. So you also mentioned, you were talking about embracing AI tools to expedite the job search. You also wrote like writing, researching, generating ideas. Tell me about the writing piece.
Yeah.
You mean how it gives you
remember the days, like people always wanted, do you have a sample cover letter I can use? Do you have a networking letter? I used to share those all the time. Well, I don't need to share those anymore because all you need to do is go into ChatGPT, acting as a career coach and job seeker.
Yeah.
Please write a letter of a letter introducing myself to this person. Please highlight these skills, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's it. You just need to tell it what you want it to write, and it's going to create a rough draft for you that you can go in and edit, which is the same thing as having a template that you'd have to go edit anyway.
Right. Edit. Okay. I didn't know if LinkedIn had something like that built in yet.
You know what? Does LinkedIn have a messaging AI?
Well, I know that it offers prompts. If I'm like email, now it offers prompts on posting.
Yes, it does.
I know, which is crazy. I don't know. I still am old school and like writing my own thing, but there may come a day when I'm like, I don't have time, but I don't know. I do like posting. Anyways. Okay.
If you're ever short of ideas, it's that, that it's an option.
Ideas. Yeah. So I want to talk about something you recently launched. The Job Search Challenge.
Yeah.
So tell me about, I know that's 5 weeks of, emailed actions with weekly check-ins. So tell me about this.
So I have long believed that people just need to have structure for their job search.
Yeah.
Right? Because when they're left to their own devices, like when you went into the office for your job, you knew what you were going to work on pretty
every
much
day,
from 8 to 5, right? But when you have a job search, you don't have any schedule. You don't know what you're going to be working on. So I thought, you know what, if I could just give job seekers these 5 actions to take and have them do that, they would be more successful because I know they would be doing the right things that they needed to do. So I created this list of 5 actions for each week for 5 weeks that somebody takes, and then I give instructions. But I think what really makes this more valuable is that I have a check-in call on Mondays. So Monday morning.
Is it a group call then for everybody?
It's a Zoom call on Monday.
It's a Zoom call, yeah.
Yeah. So Monday morning, they get the list of 5 actions with instructions and templates and whatever else they need. And then we do a Zoom call to check in. Okay, looking at this list, where are you going to get stuck? What do you need help with? And oh, by the way, let's go back a week. What do you need help from for last week? And so I'll be there to support them, but it's also the other people in the room, in the Zoom
contribute
group,
and
they can share. And it just happened this past week. They were 2 of the women that were in the call were both from Michigan.
Oh,
I know. I don't know what happened there.
And what part, do you know, or no?
I can't remember. If I thought I could, maybe.
And then you talked to me, also from Michigan. Must be your lucky week. Maybe
I know it's a Michigan thing.
Maybe
but they were saying, "Oh my gosh, we should talk offline because this is great. I didn't know we didn't know we can help each other."
I love that. Yeah.
And that's the kind of connection. Here, Erin, like job seekers feel alone and isolated. And
it's a hard time. It is. I mean, I always tell clients that I'm like, do you have, if you were let go or downsized, reach out to those people, keep in touch, because it's hard enough. I mean, what is it? One of the top 5 things that people go through.
Divorce, death, and
losing your job, and I think moving and something else. But it's hard.
Sometimes people are too, like, there one guy, and I'm sure you've had people like this too. One guy wasn't going to tell his wife and kids that he had lost his job. I'm like, dude, you have to tell them. They need to know.
Yes. They need to know.
He's like, no, they don't need to know. This won't be long. I'm like, oh my gosh. But we need support. We need allies.
Yes,
we need advocates. We need people who will support us. And oh, by the way, it's a great teaching moment for your kids to help them understand that this stuff happens. A job is not for a lifetime.
Right. And, I love that, it's a good teaching moment for your children, because they also need to see real life, mom and dad. Sometimes, this happens to us too, instead of making it perfect and rosy for them all the time. It's good for them to see real life stuff. So,
and oh, by the way, like now we have to work on budgeting, right?
Yeah.
And as a family, this is the budgeting that we're going to do. We're in this together.
Right. Yes.
I'm not going to pay for your lattes at Starbucks every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we both have kids about the same age. Yeah. Okay. So now, how do people get in touch with you? If they want to reach out to you, get in touch with you, what's the easiest way?
So I suppose they could comment on my post on LinkedIn. Let me just give you my email, which is
because if they want to join your job, job,
they can go to my website, careersherpa.net.
Okay.
Or they can email me at hmorgan@careersherpa.net.
Okay. And we will put all of that in the description notes as well, so that if you're driving and you can't jot it down, we've got you. We'll have it in there. So, we always ask our guests something about them that nobody else really knows, or maybe a hobby or something personal or whatever, just to learn a little more about you. So what is yours? Yours sounds very interesting, so I want to know. You said the Angel of Death story.
I can't remember. I have so many things.
You said you wrote Angel of Death story.
Oh, my Angel of Death. Okay. Yeah, I think that's
you had me at Angel of Death. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I've been called the Angel of Death. Back when I worked for a company, I was in their HR group, and when somebody was being laid off, they used to say, "Oh, here comes the Angel of Death," as I walked down the hallway.
That's awful.
Because they knew that if I was following people into this conference room, somebody was getting laid off.
Oh.
A tough job, right? And I was young. What did I know? I mean, I was called all kinds of crazy names that I wouldn't wish on anybody.
I was gonna say that was probably one of the better ones compared to some of the other ones.
I was called way worse things in that realm.
Right.
Oh yeah. So I had to be okay with that. I had to, because otherwise you could get really messed up having to fire all those people. So this is how I processed and reframed it for myself. If these people really loved their job and wanted to keep their job, they wouldn't have gotten on a performance improvement plan and not been able to perform, right? So these people just weren't performing. And I could see the paperwork, they weren't performing, and there were way better chances for them to go be successful doing something else. That job isn't for everybody.
Yeah. And I've always been a firm believer, like, one door closes, another door opens. I mean, it is so true. Every time, something happened with me in a job, I always found something better. So I'm a firm believer in that, but
it's tough love. I mean, it's not easy. And there's a lot of emotional that somebody has to go through before they are ready to accept that better, but it's there.
Yeah. Well, it was such a pleasure. I feel like you and I could talk a while. But
I know.
I will cut it off here, and maybe we'll talk again in a year or something.
We'll have part 2.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I'll ask you questions.
Oh, great. But I'm so excited to have you on because you have great advice for people going through this right now. So, I hope that some of our listeners are able to use this advice and also joining your job search group. I mean, that would be amazing. So just having somebody, having a group of people going through the same stuff is game changing, I think. Phenomenal. But anyways, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Thank you for having me, Erin.
Yeah. And I'll see you on LinkedIn.
Yep. See you there.
Okay. Thanks again for listening to the Office Latte Podcast. You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Executive Resumes, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Office Latte Podcast. If you have any career questions or conversations you want us to talk about, send them to officelattepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll answer them in an upcoming show. Have a great week and stay caffeinated.